All right, our next talk is with Ian Drayer. He's an analytics engineer at SciPlay. He will be talking about how testing analytics inform game design. Let's get a big round of applause.
Cool. So thank you all for coming to this talk. So as an analytics engineer at SciPlay, do a lot around everything tracking. SciPlay, we make a set of large mobile games, primarily focused around slots and social casino. And we've got thousands and even hundreds of thousands of players around the world every single day. Each of them, when they do something in the game, sends some signal to us, some piece of data to us. And so we're able to capture all of that data and use it to help make our games better, help make it so that players want to keep playing our games more and more. And so a huge portion of what we do is testing. We do a lot of A/B testing. And so A/B testing is a way of grouping players into different experiences around the same thing. So some players could be getting a green button, some players could be getting a blue button, and we're trying to determine which do players like more. And so why do we test? Tests could even be much more complex than that. We're trying something new. We're trying out a new feature, a new experience in the game, just a new addition to the game. When we have that new experience in the game, we want to make sure that it changes the players' behaviors as we expect it to change their behaviors. Players will participate in focus groups with us. We will talk with them, we'll have discussions with them. But what they say doesn't always match what they actually do. Players may say that they would love this feature. We spend time developing it. We release it. Nobody plays it. And so we go through this testing process so that we're helping to minimize the risk. We're reducing risk in rolling something out, where we only give it to a certain subset of the players so that we get a better understanding of how this feature actually changes their behavior. So our tests go in a cycle. Going out to the next page here. So we begin by deciding what to test. After we decide what to test, we pick some metrics. We break our players into groups. We let the test run, analyze the results, implement what we learned, and then decide what to test next. And so I'm going to go into a little bit of depth on each of these and some of the things I've learned along the way as to how these things can go wrong. So we begin by deciding what to test, and we need to start with a clear hypothesis. So when you're deciding what to test, know what you want to change, and you should be designing what you're changing, designing what you're testing with what you want to change in mind. If you want, with what player behavior you want to change, design your test so that you're trying to hit that, trying to get players to be more engaged with your game, to spend more time, to interact with other players if it's a multiplayer game a bit more. And you begin by building stakeholder buy-in. You can talk with the other devs on your game, with the other people on your team, to really figure out what is it that they think will help move those players in the direction that you want to move them. One thing to be careful of, though, is player networks. Players in your community are going to talk with each other. And so you want to have some sort of way of understanding, some sort of way for these players to understand tests happen, that not every player is going to be exposed to every new thing while you're testing it. And so if you run a continuous pattern of testing, your players will begin to understand, hey, I'm in the test group. This is something that is being tried new for me. And they'll tell their friends, hey, I got this cool new thing. Look for it to come to you soon. Even if you're a single player game, there's still competitive balance issues to understand. These players, if it is single player, they could be speedrunning it, they could be going for a high score. So you have to have some way of understanding how is this change going to affect your competitive balance. For us, we have a feature in our games, multiplayer game called Tournaments, where players compete with each other to see who can get the most coins in 15 minutes. And so if you make the game easier to get coins for some players than others, those players who are in that easier test group are going to win those tournaments more often. And so in your test design, you need to make sure that you separate the players so that for those tournaments, so that the easy group is different from the hard group. And then finally, when deciding what to test, don't overcomplicate things with multiple tests targeting the same feature, targeting the same behavior. If you do, you're not going to really know which of those tests, which of those changes is pushing that change in player behavior. So when you begin picking metrics for what you want to change, pick one primary metric to help to determine your winner. This is going to be your North Star metric that really tells you, did this do what my test wanted it to do? Around that metric, you've got other metrics. So as a slots game, one of our biggest metrics is spins per spinning user. How many times a player spins, given that they've spun in a day. Other metrics around it are going to include percent spinning. So the percent of the people who log into our game in a day, how many of those people actually make at least one spin. We've had tests where spins per spinning user goes down. We would think that that's a negative effect of a test. However, we saw percent spinning user, the percent of people that actually made spins, go way up. And so we were capturing more and more people, more and more users that spun each day. And because of that, we were getting more less engaged users. So even though spins per spinner went down, our percent spinning went up. And overall, we concluded that that was a overall good change for the game from that test. Some of your tests might have unintended consequences, and so consider some metrics that might be not directly related to what you're changing. So even if your spins per spinner went up, maybe your minutes went down. This could have a negative effect on your overall game. Even though you had no reason from your test to think that the minutes played would go down. And so even though you have your primary focus on one metric, still keep a wide field of vision on other metrics that are around your main metric. Random changes happen. Players change behavior for no reason or any reason at all, completely unrelated to your test. And so if you're going to be looking at a ton of metrics, some of them are going to change. Even if you did nothing, some of your metrics are going to change. Players change their behavior with no prompting. Things get stale. Things just hit them differently. They had a burrito for lunch instead of tacos. Who knows? They may have changed whatever their behavior is. And then finally, always keep an eye on some third rail or guardrail type metrics. These are your metrics that really spell danger for your game, like frames per second dropping to an alarming rate. Players are going to quit because of that. If you see churn, players leaving the game and not coming back, there's something wrong. And so you need to see, is that a result of this test? Once you've picked out your metrics, your primary metric, and you know your general test setup as far as what you're going to be looking for when analyzing the results, you need to break your players into groups, figuring out which players are going to see which experience. And so these groups that you create should represent your entire game's population, or at least the population that your test is trying to affect. Your groups should not be the same every single test. You should not be giving the same players the test experience every single time. Switch it up, randomize, do different random bits, of the entire population when creating your different test groups. Your tests should be balanced. Your groups should be representative of your game's population, especially in the metrics that you're most concerned with. So if you care about that spins per spinner, both your test and your control group should have the same average spins per spinner, and if possible, the same distribution of spins per spinner. Your sample size needs to be pretty balanced. It needs to be big enough so that when you're doing all your statistical testing, statistical analysis, you're able to actually get a signal. The more players in your group, the more you're able to handle that variance for your different statistical tests, your t-tests, your other hypothesis testing. However, you don't want your sample size to be too big. Some of the dangers with that sample size being too big, you run into over-risking your test. If there's too many players that are exposed to it, and it's a negative test, it negatively impacts your player base, you've overexposed too many people to something new that they no longer enjoy your game. With that sample size, also understand how many people within your group actually are affected by the test, not just exposed, but affected. One of the tests that we ran was removing caps on rewards for some of our most engaged players. And it turns out that only about 400 people a day were actually affected, capped by the already existing caps. And so even though we thought we had enough players in that sample group by doing a 10% sample, we needed a lot more players from that group in order to actually get statistical significance and confidence that our results were meaningful. And then finally, prepare for your subgroups. This is a lot of that stratified random sampling, where you're breaking down your players into different groups based on their characteristics. And so go into your test knowing what subgroups you're going to want to understand the behaviors of, and break players along those strata for your subgroups. Once you've broken your players into the groups, let the test run. Avoid those false wins of quick decision making. Don't overreact to your immediate results. Big reason for this is that players love the shiny new object. Players will almost always react positively the first time they see something. They see you're putting effort into your game. They want to reward you for it. And so let the test run even after that shiny new object is presented to the players. See what happens once that shiny new object, that new feature, the new color scheme, the new art scheme is in the game for a little while. See if play behavior returns back to your original baseline, if it stays elevated, or if it goes down for a more long-term pattern. Once the test has run its course and you're confident that things have stabilized, begin analyzing your results and separate your signal from the noise. Have a plan going into this analysis. Know what you're going to be searching for, and then branch out from there. Let your first few steps tell you what to look at next. Your outliers in your different metrics matter a lot. Some of your players are going to play hundreds of times more minutes than than the bulk of your players. And so the behavior of these players is really going to skew your metrics, or the average of your metrics. And so you need to ask yourself, do you care about moving the average, the center value, or do you care about moving your entire population? If you move your highest player by doubling their play or doubling their engagement with you, but you drop everybody else in your game by 5%, what happens if that one player gets hit by a bus? You've lost all of your engagement. Similarly, you can instead have a test that drops the average just a little bit, or doesn't raise the average as much compared to the test group, but the average person, they've increased their whatever metric you care about by a good 2 or 3%. And so your entire population remains healthier. And finally, if you've been digging for a while, you're going to find something. Stick with your plan. Don't just keep digging to find something. Let your datas create your conclusions, and don't have your conclusions create your data, create what you're looking for. And finally, continuously improve. Implement your learnings to continuously improve your game. Avoid the sunk cost fallacy. So just because you spent a ton of time making a new feature, making what you see as an improvement to your game happen, and putting it in and rolling it out and announcing it, doesn't mean players like it. Players may have said that they're going to like it, but their behavior, again, might not follow what they say. So don't be afraid to pull the plug on something, even if you've spent a ton of time working on it, if your players don't react in the way that you wanted them to. And if it turns out that that makes your game a little less healthy. One of the features that we worked on, we spent 6-9 months developing. Turns out it did nothing. It didn't drive player behavior. It didn't drive player engagement. They just clicked through it. And it created tech debt. We then had to integrate every single new feature that we were developing with that other feature. And so if we were willing to pull it out of the game faster, we would have had less of that tech debt. We could have rethought how we were presenting that sort of feature, how we were trying to make move player behavior a little bit better in a little bit smarter fashion to accomplish the same goals. I'm a UCLA alum. One of my favorite college basketball coaches, John Wooden. Be quick, but don't hurry. Think through and analyze your change so that you're able to implement it with a plan, and implement it quickly, but in a thoughtful way. Come to your conclusion, but don't cut any corners getting there. Be thorough in what you're doing, but as you prepare with your plan, you're able to better go through and execute it in a well-focused manner. And finally, always be testing. We have a backlog of things that we want to test. And so as soon as we finish testing one thing, it's on to the next. We have anywhere from 3 to 5 tests running in the game at any given time on different aspects of the game. And so when we finish testing one aspect of the game, testing a thing for one aspect of the game, it's just on to the next, and this entire cycle starts again. Cool. And so thank you, and take any questions. Yep.
So when you mentioned about letting the test run for extended or longer periods of time, for large changes, like for example, if you're testing out like a new color scheme for your main layout, how do you make it so that people aren't like put off by the differences between, let's say, what their friends are seeing and what they're seeing on their game?
Yep. So a lot of that is around just that player segmentation. The smaller the change, the less riskier. The faster we're going to implement, the faster we're going to roll it out to wider groups, to wider audiences. And so simple things like different layout, different color scheme. We typically are running some sort of technical test to start, where it only goes to 1 to 5% of the players to make sure that nothing breaks the entire game, that it doesn't create that the game doesn't crash. And then we roll it out to a much wider audience, and it's about 3 to 5 days. So players are seeing this something new on the other group. However, it is a huge issue that we do see when we change big things like multiply everything in our economy by 100 times. And so some players are having to bet 100 coins, whereas some players are having to bet a minimum of 10,000 coins in order to do the same thing. And so part of that is making that meta experience for them consistent and really segregating players into their test groups as far as who they're competing with. Yep.
So are you like advertising these changes ahead of time, like trying to build a hype or anything, or are they just things you're just testing, like just throwing things down, seeing what sticks?
So typically we're a live game, and so we're typically just putting them into game live. There are a few things that we really don't want to advertise these changes as A/B tests or as testing because we want to see how players react, or at least we don't advertise them outside of the game itself. So any of our Facebook groups or our community pages, we're not advertising these tests in those places. However, within the game, we typically are advertising, hey, check out this new feature, and submit feedback for us if you want. But really, we care a lot more about the gameplay behavior, how the players change their behavior in those. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Cool. Yep.
Kind of similar to that. What's your opinion on like opt-in testing for like especially like indie games where it's just like, hey guys, I have a new feature I'm trying out. Download this new build and tell me if you think it's fun. Does it make the game better? But only if people seek out and try to start testing it.
So opt-in testing is really interesting because you have that opt-in bias where players are going to choose to opt into that feature if they are more engaged in your game typically. And so you just need to change a bit about your statistical testing as far as how you're going to analyze your results, where you will now have to compare the players to their own prior behavior, as opposed to comparing, and at the same time, the players who did not opt in to their own prior behavior over the same time period. For us, Christmas is a huge time of year. And so if you were just comparing if these players opted in right before Christmas and we're playing the game over Christmas, you're going to see huge engagement spikes for those players. And so it just changes your statistical testing. Opt-in is really great for engaging with your community and definitely highly support it as long as you're accounting for it in your testing.
Thank you.
Sure.
So, because these are more like discreetly implemented into your games, how do you account for a lot of the like variables that might occur, like the time of year or like events that are going on in the world that might impact how many people are playing your game? How do you isolate your A/B testing from those events?
Right. So the way that we view it, these events that are happening in the world affect both Group A and Group B the same. And so we're just trying to isolate out what are the effects of the test. And so both Group A and B have the same meta event happening to them, the same holidays, the same time of year happening to them. And so we're able to compare the two different groups and basically ignore whatever else is going on at the same time. Yep.
How do you decide new features that you want to test? Is this something that comes from leadership, or is this something that you just theorize and want to go?
Yep. So, yes.
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 Okay.
We look at competitors in the industry. So in social casino, we look at what our competitors in social casino are doing. We also look at other games that are not social casino as far as what they're doing in order to help drive engagement. Monetization is a huge thing for us, and so we look at other shopping stores, like what has Amazon introduced to make purchasing easier. And so we look at that, see is that something that we want to test in our game for those in-app purchases. Yep.
Have you ever done small bits of A/B testing that have led to large, almost monumental design changes?
Ooh. Hmm.
Like you learned something.
Yeah. Yeah. I think part of that did work with our general art refresh, where we were changing a few buttons, found it worked pretty well, and we did end up running through and completely redesigning a ton of our art. We were A/B testing some of our characters to see in this instance, do they help drive engagement, especially our loading screen. And when our loading screen helped increase our lobby load rate, at which players open the game and then get into the lobby, we decided, hey, let's do all of our art, redo all of our art to help try and drive that engagement a little bit further. Cool. Thank you all.
Thank you.